Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. This week on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts, Phil, reaction videos are all the rage, so why not do one ourselves?
Sure.
So I've got some controversial takes in the financial space out there. We'll talk about. I got at least 4 of them I want to go over with you and get your reaction as to someone who's in the trenches working with folks every day. Because one of the things I want to point out before we do this is several of these people that are certainly in the financial sector, they're not seeing clients. They're not licensed. They're not regulated. The same way.
They're talking heads.
Yeah, talking heads. So it's a little easier to just say whatever. And while technically, I guess we're talking heads, maybe we're smaller talking heads. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought we'd have some fun with this. So I've got 3 from the financial, industry.
So, okay.
And then one from and then one from the richest man in the world. So we'll have a conversation about that and see what you think. But let's jump right in. Okay. Right. You're probably familiar, and maybe a lot of our viewers or listeners are probably familiar with Robert Kiyosaki. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, very popular book. Actually, really good book in a lot of ways. Helped a lot of people with a lot of stuff. But his stance has changed a lot through the years since that came out, and he's a little bit more. I don't know, almost Instagrammy, like, let's be sensationalistic now, than maybe
get the headlines.
But here's the take. So you tell me what you think. Instead of working for a company, he says people should save in their company retirement plans and saving in those. He said people should instead launch their own startup or buy gold or silver or Bitcoin or all of the above. Now, at the time we're talking today and recording this, gold and silver, not such a great idea. It had a rough week, 30% drop a couple days ago.
Yeah, and Bitcoin too. I mean, it's had a pretty rocky ride towards the end of the year, into the first part of the year.
Yeah. So what do you think about this interesting, kind of aggressive stance?
I mean, the challenge with something like this is you're throwing a broad statement out to a market that
they're going to be broad. Yeah.
I mean, this does not apply to maybe 5%. I mean, first of all,
that's about it. Yeah.
Everywhere, not even that probably. But I mean, startup, doing your own startup. Okay. So how many people are truly have that entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, to that extent, a startup, to me, a startup means, hey, it's something more than, I'm selling widgets out of my trunk on the weekend at, some
at the fair or at
or something, right? I mean, it's not just a hobby type of thing. Yeah. It's like, hey, I've got this grand idea that I'm going to start this whatever company it is, and be listed, or maybe not to that extent, but anyways, a substantial company.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, it probably definitely doesn't fit, right? I mean, depends on your personality. Most people do fit into the scenario of, hey, it's, working for the company, saving in the 401k. Depends on your personality. I mean, if you are truly an entrepreneur, going that startup route or having your own business, if you forget the whole concept.
But you're still going to do probably a SEP. You're still probably going to do a retirement account. Yeah.
Right. And that's a whole challenge, though, in that industry, self-employed,
right,
is helping those individuals realize that at some point, you're not going to be able to do this, right? You're going to be retired, so you don't count on that business as the value. I see way too often that business owners' biggest investment, and sometimes their only investment, is their business.
Yeah.
Only investment is absolutely wrong. I mean, if you just step out of that and look at it in just general terms, right? Even if, as a general investor, if I said, put everything you own in this company, you'd say you're out of your mind, right? I mean, you're way overexposed.
Well, and maybe that's where he's going, because he's saying, hey, don't invest in their company retirement plans. But it's like, look, it's still your retirement plan too. Or even if you don't want to do that, do it up to the point where you and I talk about this all the time. At least do it up and get to the free money, get the free match, right? And then if you want your own separate account someplace that you're pumping away in, go for it. But to not save for retirement and just risk it on gold, silver, or Bitcoin just seems a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, the last section, the gold, silver, and Bitcoin, I mean,
it's just crazy.
That is just rolling the dice. You know, I mean, they've had a great run, to an extent, but now, like anything, I mean, when you have something that runs that hot that quick, it's going to cool off. It's nature. And it's what happens.
Well, we're taping.
Look back in history. It always runs through this cycle.
Well, we're taping this today, Friday. Today, excuse me. I guess I should say we're taping this on a Wednesday. So just three business days ago, silver dropped 30%.
Yeah, right? Silver got hammered.
Now it's ticking itself back up, and it's had a decent week so far. But again, but gold and silver both took a hammer after growing for a while. So we're going to continue to see volatility. So I don't know. I just kind of feel like this one's a bit risky for those who aren't obviously already and he's pretty dang wealthy. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with gold, silver, or Bitcoin.
Sure. Right? In moderation.
To an extent, in moderation in a portfolio.
Yeah.
I mean, we have precious metals. We have Bitcoin in a lot of our portfolios. But I mean, that isn't our biggest investment, not the only investment. I mean, it's a very small fraction of the portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, that one's a little bit aggressive. This one's a little bit. This one's a little ultra conservative, maybe. So, Suze Orman, so host of Women and Money, recently suggested that retirees set aside 3 to 5 years worth of living expenses for that just in case protection against stock market downturns. So, kind of the emergency fund on steroids.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a concept that I walk through with clients a lot because we've all been taught, in your working years to have that emergency fund. Not 3 to 5 years. Usually it's 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. 3 to 5 years is hard for someone to put away.
Yeah. I mean, that the concept there is, hey, I lost my job. I've got to bridge the gap till a new one happens. So in retirement, you lost your job. You're, living off your savings. So there's not a need for the emergency fund from that standpoint. It's more just what you're comfortable with having X amount in the bank for that.
Right.
Now, I mean, that being said, I kind of understand where she's going, and we use a similar concept, but not just money in the bank, right? So we'll have what we call our soon bucket. It's a more conservative investment that we're spending from. That's where the retirement paycheck, if you want to think of it, the distributions are coming from, so that we're hedging that volatility in a market. But it's not going to be just money in the bank. The challenge there is that's a pretty sizable amount of your investments to have tied up that historically doesn't keep up with inflation.
Okay.
Now the thought is going to be over the last 3 to 4 years, we've had some pretty decent money market interest rates, which right now, you might be able to get more in a money market than what you're getting or what we're seeing in inflation, or at least close to it. Mm-hmm. Generally, that's not the case. Long-term historical facts are not that way. I mean, what you're earning in the bank is nowhere near what inflation is.
Okay. Right.
So that's the biggest risk that you have in having this buffer. Always set aside that sizable amount of buffer that is purely just kind of money in the bank. You're losing growth potential.
Yeah.
So
maybe a little too conservative.
Yeah, a little too conservative. I mean, definitely have some money in the bank.
Yeah.
Have other monies that is more conservative that you're spending from.
Yeah.
But still has some growth potential to keep up with that kind of interim inflation.
Yeah, if you're worth $100 million, putting 3 years worth aside is probably easier. So
Right.
The Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. You will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of The Tax Smart Retiree right now.
Let's go to our next one here. Old Dave would not be reaction video about if he didn't make the list, right? So Dave Ramsey, obviously, no, massive empire, has some interesting takes, has some good takes, also has some controversial takes, like cutting up all your credit cards and paying only with cash. But this one, to me, is, especially for our demographic and the people that you help, seems a bit crazy. So he's advocating for 8% annual withdrawals for retirees who invest 100% in stocks. The idea being that if over time the S&P 500 yields a 10% rate of return, and it's done better than that for a number of years, I understand that, he says the money should then last you long enough through your retirement. 100% in stocks for retirees sounds loco to me.
Yeah, probably more aggressive than I would. even venture to say most non-retirees are comfortable with 100%.
Yeah, I mean, like, how you gonna, like, if you're 65 years old, how you gonna sleep at night thinking I got 100% in the market, unless you've got a complete strategy in place where everything, you've already got a lot of protected things and so on and so forth. It just seems nutty. Like that again. Let's like my people, 1% of people.
Yeah, so I have all sorts of concerns with this. Number one, 8%. I mean, that's not even statistically viable. I mean, the math has already been run in this, and it used to be the 4% rule.
Right.
And then that's kind of bounced all over the place. And granted, I mean, that was more in a balanced type portfolio.
Yeah. And so just for context, Phil, right? So 8%, if you had $1 million in an account, he's saying pull 80 grand out a year, right?
Right.
Year over year. And with the market returns, you'd be fine. And
in simple interest, yeah. I mean, if you think, I'm earning 10, I'm only pulling out 8, that's great.
Yeah.
But the reality is that what he's missing in all of this is in retirement, you have this little thing called sequence of returns that everyone does. Everyone experiences it, but it doesn't really affect you when you're not pulling money out. And sequence of return just simply means the order that returns happen.
Right.
So an average market at 10%, average on, over 10, 15 years, whatever it is, doesn't mean you got 10% a year. It's not like money in the bank. It means that mathematically you average them out, it's 10%. There's going to be some years you probably made 30. There's other years you're going to have lost 30 or more percent. So the challenge there is that when you're in those down years, that's a significant distribution to take on an account that's down. You're having to sell more and more shares that are at a significant loss.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, if he's trying to say, well, I'm willing to cut back my distribution when the markets are down, which most retirees, that's not how they want to live.
Right.
They have, here's my budget, so to speak. I need, X amount a month, and that's what they need. It's not like they can not pay the heat bill and, whatever else, the fixed expenses if the market's down and wait for it to recover. That's the challenge is you don't have time.
Yeah.
In order to
recover.
So for
a little interesting, fun context, somebody might say, well, wait a minute, 8%. Well, okay, the market in 23 was 26%. The S&P, again, he's talking S&P. Yep. So it did 26.29 in 23. It did 25.02 in 24, and it did 17.88 in 25. So somebody would say, hey, it's easy enough to pull 8% out, especially if you're 100% invested, because you're making quite a bit because, they had great years. However, to your point about sequence of return risk, there's a whole 10-year window in the 2000s where that would have been bad juju. And you don't know when this may happen again, right? I mean, we just talked about silver a minute ago. Yeah. Are we on the edge of a possible correction? A lot of people feel like it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we don't know when that's going to happen. At some point, we will see a downturn in the market again. Sustained downturn correction.
Sustained,
in the market.
Yeah.
That's just what happens. That's what markets do. So Dave's always kind of pushed the edge on what a reasonable return, expected return in an investment might be. So,
well, and again,
not surprising knowing kind of his historical.
Those three people have books, they have shows, they have things where, hey, and as we all know in our society now, controversy and sensationalism is typically it's the currency of the business.
It's headlines, right?
Yeah.
Give me the headlines. All I need is the views. That's where, the clicks. That's where I get paid. So,
but for everyday Americans in the trenches, right? You sit down in front of somebody like yourself and you say, hey, look, is that even doable? You go looking at their specific stuff and go, no,
Right. And to your point, so, I mean, they're not licensed. They're not registered. They don't have to follow, quote unquote, the rules.
Yep.
So they can say whatever
rules,
they want and there's no really backlash to it that, hey, well, sorry,
sorry you tried that. It didn't work.
It's for educational purposes only, I'm sure, and don't follow my advice. Seek the advice of a financial professional or something.
And we have our disclaimer on the show as well, because
absolutely,
because we're talking in general terms until you go sit down and actually get a strategy put in place.
Yes.
Right. So,
and that's with any of these, that's the first thing to understand is these are all general concepts.
Yeah.
Even advisors, even a lot of what we talk on the show, we're not going to talk to these extremes, but a lot of what we talk on the show, it's not meant to be financial advice. It's not meant to, I should absolutely do whatever that topic was on the show that week because that sounded great.
Right.
I don't know if that fits.
let's find out if it fits, and
look at your specific scenario to see, is this right?
Yeah.
Is it, the right fit for your scenario and what you're trying to accomplish, your investments, your risk tolerance, your income needs. There's all these moving parts. So.
Yeah, it's concepts that may or may not work for you. So let's dive under the hood and then see which ones actually do work, and then put together a cohesive and complete strategy, and tune up the car, so to speak. So,
right.
All right. Final one. I said we would talk about the richest man in the world. Elon, of course, says advances in AI technology. This one's wild. Energy and robotics will generate such an abundance of resources for all that individual retirement savings will become irrelevant in the future. On a recent podcast, he said, "Don't worry about squirreling away money for retirement. In another 10 or 20 years, it just won't matter."
Easiest. I was gonna say easiest for the richest man in the world to say, "Yeah, don't worry about saving money."
It's like the guy, not like the guy. He's done some really cool stuff. He's got some interesting ideas, and I can see a snippet of where he's trying to think, where his brain is maybe thinking about this. Right. But for people who are already in their 50s or 60s, may not have 20 years, maybe you do, but it's just too risky. And it's like, that's just, first of all, you need some sort of a universal pay for everyone just to live, right?
Right. So, in that case, that is effectively what's being implied is that it's going to generate this surplus, but to who, right? So if it's going to generate that surplus, it's got to be to some governmental where there's universal income. It's a whole nother.
And do we even trust them to do the right things with it?
Right. Exactly. If it's owned by companies, do you think they're just going to be generous and share all that with you? No.
I don't think the government would be either. So
you make money, probably not. Yeah. So, yeah. A lot of things like this, it's nice, kind of theory to read and speculate on.
Water cooler conversation. Yeah, absolutely.
Would you want to bet your future on it? Yeah. No.
Well, and I'll be controversial for our own show here. Hopefully Phil doesn't make me cut this out. But, this is why, to me, capitalism still is the better system that's out there. We can have all these protests and all blah, 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 whatever's going on. But fundamentally, do you trust somebody else to say, hey, here's this massive pot of money, and we're going to make sure everybody gets the right amount equally? A human somewhere is still in charge, and unless it's you in charge of your own money, I just don't trust that.
And at the end of the day, it's just look at history, right?
That's my point. Yeah,
it has never worked.
It's never worked. Yeah, it's never worked. Right? Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't trust myself to do my own heart surgery. Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that my neighbor would trust me to do his heart surgery. He's going to go see somebody who actually knows how to do it. And so therefore I just don't trust somebody to say, no, don't worry. I promise I'm going to take care of you. Right.
Yeah. And so the way I would approach this in any financial decision, we do this with clients on any decision they're making, is look at the pros and cons, right? So here's the option.
Okay.
So let's say you follow this advice. What's the pro and the con? So, if everything goes exactly as he's saying, that's awesome, right? You didn't have to worry about saving for retirement. You got to enjoy all your money today.
Yeah.
And in the future, you've got more than what you need. It's a surplus, and we all live happily ever after.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
What's the probability? I would put a really small fraction.
1%, 2%,
if that.
Yeah.
So what happens if it doesn't? So let's say you take this advice, you don't save anything. And not to say AI is going to go away. It's here. We're going to get more adapted and whatever else.
Right.
But it doesn't generate this universal surplus for everyone, and you still have to rely on your resources or potentially Social Security. But you now have squandered, 10, 15 years that you didn't prepare properly.
Yeah.
So what's the alternative there?
Right.
And that's a decision you have to make. Right. It's not. And that's my role as a financial advisor with any decision with a client, isn't to say do this or this. It's to say, okay, here's the fact we're looking at. Here's pros and cons. It's options. It's your life. It's not mine.
Right.
Here's what I would do, but tell me what we're going to do. And in this case, if this was a client of mine, I disengage because I'm sorry, I can't support that.
If that's what you prefer, then you'll probably have to work with somebody else. I can't have that on my conscience, right? Kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I don't want to be there in 10 years when it potentially doesn't work. And then you're going to come back to me and say, why didn't you stop me?
Well,
I tried.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, controversial takes are just that, right?
Exactly.
We live in a world now where everybody says, crazy stuff on a regular basis. And again, you gotta weigh those things for your individual life. We all do that, no matter what it is, whether it's the kind of food you eat or the kind of programs you watch or whatever it is, right? Everything is about making choices. We raised our kid telling her all the time, life is full of choices, make one, right? So when it comes to finances, you got to make those choices as well. So if you need some help, especially when it, down actually in the trenches, dealing with your actual numbers and your actual data, that's why it's important to sit down with an actual licensed professional who does it every day. So if you need some help, we've got links in the show descriptions below. As always, get onto Phil's calendar, have a conversation with him. And if you got a thought, hit us up in the comments down below. What do you think about some of these interesting takes? Feel free to to share your comments as well. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And with that, we'll see you next time here on the program. Thanks, buddy.
Take care.
Phil? Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.